The frigid wind cut through the early morning streets as Alex trudged to school, his thin jacket doing little to keep him warm. His fingers clutched a lunchbox patched with duct tape, an unspoken symbol of his family's struggles. The sidewalks were cracked and dusted with frost, much like the peeling paint on the dilapidated apartment building he called home. Alex's family was hanging by a thread. 3 days, that's all the time their landlord, Mr. Ramsey, had given them to find the overdue rent or face eviction. The memory of his mother, teary-eyed and pleading for more time, replayed in Alex's mind as he tightened his grip on the lunchbox. Inside was his sole meal for the day, a peanut butter sandwich. His stomach growled, but he pushed the thought aside. That's when he saw him. Slumped against a graffiti-covered brick wall was a man wrapped in layers of mismatched tattered clothing. His frail hands shook as he tried to pull his coat tighter against the bitter wind. His breaths came in shaky, visible puffs, and his half-closed eyes barely noticed Alex's approach. For a moment, Alex hesitated, clutching his lunchbox like a lifeline. "I need this sandwich," he thought, his stomach twisting with hunger. But then he glanced again at the man, whose hollow cheeks and trembling hands spoke volumes of days, if not weeks, without food. The man coughed weakly, a sound that tore at Alex's resolve. Without thinking, he crouched down, opened his lunchbox, and unwrapped the sandwich with care. "Here," Alex whispered, holding it out. "It's not much, but it's all I have." The man's eyes widened in surprise. His trembling hands accepted the sandwich as if it were a treasure. "Thank you," he croaked, his voice hoarse but filled with gratitude. Alex nodded silently and stood, turning back toward his path to school. The icy wind gnawed at his now empty hands, but inside he felt something he hadn't in a long time, a flicker of warmth. It was a small act, but it made him feel like for once he could make a difference. Little did Alex know, his life was about to change forever. The next morning, the first rays of sunlight painted the neighborhood in shades of gold. Alex stirred in his bed, still wrapped in the remnants of a restless sleep. His apartment remained quiet, the kind of silence that came with uncertainty. Just as he was about to drift back into sleep, the low rumble of a car engine broke the stillness. From his bedroom window, Alex saw a sleek black car pull up outside their building. Its glossy exterior was a sharp contrast to the neighborhood's worn and weathered surroundings. A tall man stepped out, his tailored navy suit and polished shoes exuding confidence and authority. His sharp gaze scanned the building, lingering for a moment on Alex's window. "Alex," his mother's voice, edged with worry, called out from the doorway. "There's someone here to see you." Heart pounding, Alex threw on a jacket and descended the creaky stairs to the front door. Standing there was the suited man, his presence both intimidating and strangely inviting. "Good morning," the man greeted warmly. "You don't know me, but yesterday you showed me something I'll never forget." Alex blinked, confusion written all over his face. "Who are you?" "My name is Nicholas Carter," the man said, extending a hand, "and I believe we need to talk." Nicholas's impact on Alex's life began to extend beyond their family's apartment. That very afternoon, Nicholas took Alex and his mother Clara to a local community center. Unlike their worn-down neighborhood, the center was bustling with activity. Children running through the halls, adults attending workshops, and volunteers setting up tables with food and supplies. "And this is what I believe in," Nicholas explained, gesturing around the lively space, "empowering communities to lift themselves up. But to do that, we need more people like you, Alex. People with compassion and determination." Alex looked around in awe, feeling out of place among the confident volunteers and their seemingly endless energy. Clara, however, placed a protective hand on his shoulder. "He's just a boy," she said softly, her voice lined with worry. "This feels like a lot for him to handle." Nicholas smiled. "I understand, but sometimes a single person's kindness can ripple out and change lives." Alex's act of giving was just the beginning. He led them to a quiet corner where a woman in her late 40s stood, organizing a stack of books. She had a kind face and glasses that perched on the tip of her nose. "This is Miriam," Nicholas introduced. "She runs the mentorship program here. I think Alex could benefit from spending some time with her." Miriam greeted Alex warmly, crouching slightly to meet his eye level. "I've heard a lot about you," she said, her voice as gentle as her expression. And I think you've got something special. I'd love to help you figure out how to use it." Alex nodded hesitantly, unsure of what to expect. He had spent so much of his life just trying to get by that the idea of having someone guide him felt both thrilling and intimidating. Over the following weeks, Alex's life began to transform in unexpected ways. He visited the community center regularly, where Miriam introduced him to new ideas and opportunities. She encouraged him to read books about people who had made a difference in their communities and challenged him to think about how he could do the same. One afternoon, as they sat in the corner of the center's library, Miriam handed Alex a blank notebook. "This is for you," she said. "Think of it as a place to write your thoughts, ideas, or even dreams." Alex opened the notebook, staring at the empty pages. "I don't know if I have anything to write," he admitted. Miriam smiled. "You'd be surprised how much you have to say once you start. Every great idea starts somewhere, even if it's just a scribble in a notebook." That night, Alex sat by the window in his apartment, the notebook balanced on his knees. He stared at the first page for what felt like an eternity before finally writing down a single sentence: "I want to help people who feel invisible." The words felt simple, but as Alex read them back, he realized they held a truth he hadn't fully understood until now. He thought of the man on the street, of his own family's struggles, and of all the people who walked through life feeling unseen and unheard. Maybe, just maybe, he could do something about it. Meanwhile, Clara found herself adjusting to her new job at the bakery. The work was exhausting, but it gave her a sense of purpose she hadn't felt in years. Her co-workers, a tight-knit group of women who had faced their own hardships, quickly became her support system. They often shared stories over coffee during breaks, and Clara began to realize she wasn't alone in her struggles. One evening, as Alex sat doing homework at the kitchen table, Clara returned home with a box of pastries in hand. "For the first time," she said, setting the box down with a smile, "I feel like things are looking up." Alex looked up from his notebook, his face lighting up at the sight of the treats. "That's because we're not doing this alone anymore," he said. But not everyone in their lives embraced these changes. At school, Alex's classmates remained divided in their opinions of him. Some admired his connection to Nicholas Carter and the work he was doing at the community center, while others saw it as an opportunity to mock him. "You think you're better than us now?" one boy sneered as Alex walked past in the hallway. "Just because you've got some rich guy backing you up?" The words stung, but Alex held his head high, remembering Miriam's advice. When people doubt you, let your actions speak louder than their words. One day, during lunch, Alex noticed a girl sitting alone at a table in the corner of the cafeteria. Her head was down, and she picked at her food without eating. Alex recognized her as Sophia, a quiet classmate who rarely spoke to anyone. Summoning his courage, Alex approached her. "Hey," he said, setting his tray down across from hers. "Do you mind if I sit here?" Sophia looked up, startled, but nodded. They ate in silence for a while before Alex finally asked, "Are you okay?" She hesitated, then shrugged. "It's nothing." "Doesn't look like nothing," Alex said gently. "If you ever want to talk, I'm here." Sophia studied him for a moment, then offered a faint smile. Alex realized that helping others didn't always mean grand gestures. Sometimes, it was as simple as being there. Back at the community center, Nicholas approached Alex with a new challenge. "I want you to lead the next workshop," he said. Alex's eyes widened. "Me? Lead? I don't think I can do that." "I think you can," Nicholas replied. "And so does Miriam. You've got the passion and the perspective. The rest will come with practice." The workshop, scheduled for the following Saturday, focused on brainstorming ideas for community improvement. Alex spent hours preparing, with Miriam coaching him on how to organize his thoughts and speak with confidence. By the time the day arrived, he was a bundle of nerves, but determined to give it his best shot. Standing at the front of the room, Alex took a deep breath and began. "Hi, everyone," he said, his voice shaky at first. "I'm Alex, and I want to talk about how small acts of kindness can lead to big changes." As he spoke, he shared his story about the man on the street and how it had led him to where he was now. The audience, a mix of kids and adults, listened intently. By the end of the workshop, people were raising their hands, sharing their own ideas and experiences. When it was over, Nicholas clapped Alex on the shoulder. "You did great," he said. "I'm proud of you." Alex felt a swell of pride, not just in himself, but in the growing sense of community around him. He was beginning to see that his story wasn't just his own, it was part of something bigger. As weeks turned into months, the ripple effect of Alex's kindness continued to grow. The community center expanded its programs, offering everything from literacy classes to mental health support groups. Clara became an active volunteer, using her baking skills to teach others how to make affordable, nutritious meals. Even Sophia began to open up, joining Alex at the center and eventually leading her own project to create care packages for homeless individuals. "You inspired me," she told Alex one afternoon as they packed toiletries and snacks into bags. "You made me realize I could do more." But with success came new challenges. Nicholas received news that funding for the center's programs might be cut due to budget constraints. Determined not to let their progress be undone, Alex and the other volunteers organized a fundraiser, hosting a community fair to raise money and awareness. The fair was a resounding success, drawing families from all over the neighborhood. Alex found himself running from booth to booth, helping with everything from setting up games to selling raffle tickets. By the end of the day, they had not only met their fundraising goal, but exceeded it. As the sun set and the fair wound down, Nicholas gathered everyone together for a heartfelt thank you speech. "This," he said, gesturing to the crowd, "is what happens when a community comes together. None of this would be possible without each and every one of you." Alex stood beside him, looking out at the smiling faces of his neighbors. For the first time in his life, he felt not just hopeful, but certain that they were building something that would last. Late that night, as Alex sat by his window, writing in his notebook, he reflected on everything that had happened, the struggles, the triumphs, the people who had come into his life and changed it forever. He didn't know what the future held, but he knew one thing for sure. Kindness was the spark that started it all. And he would carry that spark with him wherever he went. And in the quiet of his room, under the glow of the streetlights, Alex wrote his next goal. "One day, I'll create a center like this for kids who feel invisible, just like I did." The journey was far from over, but Alex was ready for whatever came next. As the weeks rolled on, Alex's ambitions continued to grow. The success of the community fair had sparked new ideas, and he couldn't shake the thought of creating something even bigger, something that could reach beyond the walls of the neighborhood. Sitting in his room one evening, his notebook open on the desk, Alex began sketching out a plan. What if we started a program where kids could connect with mentors in different fields, he thought aloud. He imagined a world where kids like him, kids who felt invisible, could learn skills, find guidance, and discover their potential. The next morning, Alex brought the idea to Miriam and Nicholas at the community center. He laid out his vision nervously, unsure of how they would react. "I think it's a fantastic idea," Miriam said with a wide smile. "It's ambitious, but it's exactly the kind of initiative we need." Nicholas nodded thoughtfully. "This could be a game changer, Alex, but it will require a lot of work. Are you ready for that?" Alex hesitated for only a moment before nodding. "I am. I want to make this happen." The first step was spreading the word. Nicholas helped Alex draft letters and emails to local businesses and professionals, asking if they'd be willing to volunteer as mentors. Clara, always eager to support her son's dreams, helped him create colorful flyers to post around the neighborhood. To Alex's surprise, the response was overwhelming. A local artist offered to teach painting classes. A retired engineer volunteered to run workshops on robotics. Even the owner of a small tech company agreed to host coding sessions. Within weeks, the program, which Alex called Pathfinders, was ready to launch. On the day of the first workshop, the community center buzzed with energy. Kids of all ages shuffled in, their faces a mixture of curiosity and excitement. The mentors set up their stations, each one filled with tools, supplies, and ideas. Alex walked through the room, checking in with everyone. He paused at the station run by Mr. Wilkes, the retired engineer, who was demonstrating how to build simple circuits. A small group of kids gathered around him, their eyes wide with fascination. "It's amazing," Alex said, watching as a young boy connected wires to a battery and lit up a tiny bulb. "It's just the beginning," Mr. Wilkes replied with a smile. "These kids are going to surprise you." As the program gained momentum, Alex found himself busier than ever. He balanced school, Pathfinders, and his volunteer work at the community center, often staying up late into the night to plan the next set of workshops. It was exhausting, but he thrived on the sense of purpose it gave him. One evening, Nicholas pulled Alex aside after a particularly successful event. "You've done incredible work," he said, "but I want to make sure you're taking care of yourself too. You can't pour from an empty cup." Alex nodded, though he didn't fully understand what Nicholas meant. He was so focused on helping others that he often forgot to take a moment for himself. It wasn't until a quiet Sunday afternoon that Alex finally slowed down. He sat on the porch of his apartment building, watching the world go by. His notebook rested on his lap, filled with pages of ideas and plans. For the first time in weeks, he allowed himself to reflect. He thought about how far he'd come, from the boy clutching a tattered lunchbox on his way to school to the young leader of a growing movement. He thought about the people who had helped him along the way: Nicholas, Miriam, his mother, and even Sophia, who had found her own voice through the community center. And he thought about the man on the street, the one who had sparked all of this. Alex wondered where he was now, and whether he'd ever know how much that moment had changed everything. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Alex's thoughts turned to the future. Pathfinders was growing, but there was still so much more he wanted to do. He dreamed of opening more centers, of reaching more kids, of creating a network of opportunities that no one could ignore. For the first time, he allowed himself to dream big, not just for himself, but for everyone who had ever felt invisible. "I'm ready," he whispered to the evening air. "I'm ready to keep going." And with that, Alex opened his notebook and began writing again. As Pathfinders grew, the program began to attract attention beyond the community. Local newspapers covered their workshops, highlighting the transformative impact they had on both the participants and the mentors. Television crews occasionally showed up to film segments, and one day Alex was invited to speak at a local youth leadership conference. Standing backstage at the conference, Alex felt a wave of nerves he hadn't experienced in months. The auditorium was filled with young people from across the city, all eager to hear about his journey. Nicholas was in the front row, alongside Clara and Miriam, who gave him an encouraging nod as his name was announced. Alex took a deep breath and stepped onto the stage. The spotlight was blinding, but as he began to speak, the words flowed naturally. "I didn't think I could make a difference," he said, his voice steady. "I was just a kid trying to get through the day. But one small act, giving my lunch to a man who needed it more than I did, changed everything. It taught me that kindness isn't just about the person you're helping, it's about how that act can ripple out and inspire others." He spoke about the challenges his family had faced, the support he had received, and the power of a community coming together. By the time he finished, the audience was on their feet, clapping and cheering. Alex left the stage feeling a sense of accomplishment he hadn't felt since the program began. Afterward, as he mingled with the crowd, a boy approached him, his hands stuffed into his jacket pockets. "Hey," the boy said quietly. "I just wanted to say, what you said really inspired me. My family's struggling too, but hearing your story makes me think we can get through it." Alex smiled, his heart swelling with pride. "You can," he said, "and if you ever need someone to talk to, I'm here." Back at the community center, Nicholas gathered the team for an important meeting. "We've come a long way," he began, addressing the room, "but there's an opportunity for us to take this to the next level. I've been speaking with some potential sponsors who are interested in expanding Pathfinders to other neighborhoods." The room buzzed with excitement, but Alex felt a twinge of doubt. Expanding the program sounded incredible, but it also meant stepping into unknown territory. "What would that mean for us?" he asked. "Vishas." Means more resources, more mentors, and more kids who can benefit from what we're doing, Nicholas explained. But it also means more responsibility. We'll need to form partnerships, manage logistics, and ensure that the heart of Pathfinders remains intact. Alex nodded slowly. He thought about the boy at the conference, about Sophia, and about all the kids who had found hope through the program. "Let's do it," he said. "Whatever it takes." As the expansion plans took shape, Alex found himself busier than ever. He spent his evenings researching grant applications, meeting with potential sponsors, and brainstorming ways to adapt the program for different communities. Nicholas and Miriam were there every step of the way, offering guidance and encouragement. One afternoon, Nicholas pulled Alex aside. "You've grown into an incredible leader," he said. "But leadership isn't just about the big decisions. It's also about trusting your team and knowing when to delegate." Alex frowned. "I just want to make sure everything's perfect." "Perfection isn't the goal," Nicholas replied. "Progress is. And you don't have to do this alone." It was advice Alex took to heart. He began leaning more on the mentors and volunteers, trusting them to handle parts of the program while he focused on the bigger picture. It wasn't easy at first, but as he saw how capable his team was, he realized how much stronger they were together. Meanwhile, Clara had an idea of her own. Inspired by the success of Pathfinders, she approached Alex with a proposal. "What if we started a cooking program for parents?" she suggested. "A lot of families in the neighborhood struggle with meal planning and budgeting. I could teach them how to make healthy, affordable meals." Alex's face lit up. "That's a great idea, Mom. Let's do it." With Clara at the helm, the cooking program quickly became one of the most popular offerings at the community center. Parents gathered in the kitchen to share recipes, swap stories, and support one another. For Clara, it was a chance to give back to the community that had lifted her family up. And for Alex, it was another reminder of the power of kindness. As the first expansion of Pathfinders launched in a neighboring community, Alex was invited to visit the new center. It was located in a part of the city even more neglected than his own, but the energy inside the building was electric. Kids and mentors filled the space, eagerly diving into workshops on everything from photography to financial literacy. Walking through the center, Alex spotted a girl sitting alone in a corner, scribbling in a notebook. She reminded him of himself, back when he first started at the community center. He approached her with a smile. He said, "What are you working on?" The girl looked up, startled. "Just some ideas," she said, hesitantly. "Mind if I take a look?" Alex asked. She hesitated for a moment before handing him the notebook. Inside were sketches of buildings and notes about creating spaces for art and learning. "I want to design places where kids can feel safe," she explained, "where they can be creative." Alex handed the notebook back, his smile widening. "That's an amazing idea. You should talk to one of the mentors here. They can help you figure out how to make it happen." The girl's eyes lit up. "You think so?" "I know so," Alex said. "That's what Pathfinders is all about, helping each other turn ideas into reality." As the months went on, the impact of Pathfinders continued to grow. More centers opened, more kids found their voices, and more lives were changed. For Alex, it was a dream come true, but he knew the work was far from over. One evening, as he stood outside the original community center, Nicholas joined him. The two of them looked out at the bustling street where kids played and families gathered. "You've built something incredible," Nicholas said, "but the most important part is that you've inspired others to carry it forward." Alex nodded, a sense of peace settling over him. "It's not just my story anymore," he said. "It's ours." And as the lights of the city twinkled in the distance, Alex knew that the ripple effect of kindness would continue to spread, touching lives in ways he could only imagine. As the expansion of Pathfinders gained momentum, new challenges began to arise, ones that required Alex to navigate uncharted waters. While he had managed to unite his community and inspire neighboring ones, the growth of the program brought with it a level of complexity that he hadn't fully anticipated. Logistics, funding, and expectations all began to pile up, and Alex quickly realized that his small team couldn't handle everything alone. One afternoon, during a meeting with Nicholas and Miriam, Alex voiced his concerns. I feel like we're running out of hands, he admitted, rubbing his temples. Every time we open a new center or launch a new program, it feels like we're falling behind on something else. Nicholas leaned back in his chair, his thoughtful expression unwavering. You're right, he said. We've reached a point where we need to think about sustainability. We can't keep expanding unless we have the structure to support. Miriam nodded in agreement. Maybe it's time to bring in more leadership, build a team of directors for each center, people who can take on some of the responsibility and keep things running smoothly. Alex hesitated. He had always seen Pathfinders as a personal mission, a reflection of the kindness and support he had received. Letting go of control felt daunting, but he knew Miriam and Nicholas were right. Okay, he said finally, but how do we find the right people? The search for center directors began immediately. Nicholas reached out to his network, Miriam contacted local community leaders, and even Clara suggested a few people from her cooking program. Over the next month, Alex interviewed dozens of candidates, each one bringing a unique perspective and skills. One candidate stood out in particular, Jamal, a former high school teacher who had left the classroom to work in youth advocacy. He had a calm, authoritative presence and a knack for connecting with kids. During his interview, he told Alex about his own struggles growing up in an underprivileged neighborhood. I know what it's like to feel like no one's in your corner, Jamal said, but I also know what it's like to have someone show up for you. That's why I want to be part of this. Alex felt an immediate connection to Jamal's story and offered him the position on the spot. Over the following weeks, Jamal proved to be an invaluable addition to the team, bringing structure and organization to the growing network of Pathfinders centers. As the new leadership team settled in, Alex found himself with more time to focus on the bigger picture. He began reaching out to larger organizations and corporations, hoping to secure partnerships that could provide long-term funding and resources. One such meeting brought him to the sleek downtown office of Horizon Technologies, a leading software company known for its philanthropy. The CEO, a sharp-named woman named Evelyn Park, greeted Alex with a firm handshake. "I've heard a lot about you," she said, motioning for him to sit. "It's not every day we see someone your age leading something as impactful as Pathfinders." Alex smiled nervously. "Thank you. I'm just trying to make a difference." As he explained the mission and vision of Pathfinders, Evelyn listened intently, occasionally jotting down notes. When he finished, she leaned back in her chair, her expression unreadable. "I like what you're doing," she said finally, "but I'll be honest. Corporations like mine get pitched by nonprofits every day. What makes Pathfinders different?" Alex hesitated for a moment, then spoke from the heart. "It's personal," he said. "Pathfinders isn't just a program, it's a movement. It's about giving people the tools to change their own lives and then paying that kindness forward. We're not just solving problems, we're creating leaders." Evelyn's eyes softened. "I can see that. Let's set up a pilot program. Horizon will sponsor one of your new centers and provide funding for tech workshops. If it's successful, we'll talk about a larger partnership." Alex left the meeting feeling both exhilarated and nervous. It was a step in the right direction, but the pressure to deliver was immense. The pilot program launched 2 months later at a Pathfinders center in a low-income neighborhood on the city's outskirts. Horizon Technologies provided laptops, tablets, and software for the workshops, and their employees volunteered as instructors. The response from the community was overwhelming. One of the participants, a 12-year-old girl named Maya, quickly stood out. Despite never having touched a computer before, she picked up coding with astonishing speed and began creating her own simple programs by the end of the first workshop. Jamal, who was overseeing the center, called Alex one evening to share the news. "You've got to see this kid," he said. "She's got a gift. If we can get her the right opportunities, she could go far." Alex visited the center the next day and watched in amazement as Maya explained the code behind a game she had built. "This is incredible," he said. "Have you thought about doing this as a career?" Maya shrugged. "I don't know. I didn't even know this was something I could do until now." "Well, you can," Alex said firmly, "and I'm going to make sure you have the chance." Inspired by Maya's story, Alex began to explore ways to connect Pathfinders participants with long-term opportunities. He reached out to local colleges, trade schools, and apprenticeship programs, pitching the idea of creating scholarships and pathways for kids who showed exceptional promise. The response was overwhelmingly positive, and within months, several institutions had signed on to partner with Pathfinders. But as the program expanded its reach, Alex found himself facing a new kind of challenge: skepticism from outside the community. Some critics questioned whether the program was sustainable or accused it of being a band-aid solution that didn't address systemic issues. One evening, as Alex scrolled through comments on an article about Pathfinders, he came across one that read, "These programs are just feel-good projects. They don't change the fact that poverty is still a reality." The words stung, but Nicholas's voice echoed in his mind. "You can't let the critics stop you. Focus on the people you're helping. That's what matters." The next day, Alex shared the comment with Miriam and Jamal during a team meeting. "I want to do more," he said. "I don't want Pathfinders to just be about workshops. I want us to advocate for real change." Miriam nodded thoughtfully. "What if we start hosting town halls? Give the community a platform to voice their concerns and ideas. We could invite local officials, business leaders, and activists to participate." Jamal added, "And we can use those town halls to push for policies that address the root causes of the problems we're tackling." Alex's eyes lit up. "Let's do it." The first town hall was held in the auditorium of the original Pathfinders Center. The room was packed, with people from all walks of life coming together to share their stories and ideas. Alex moderated the event, nervously clutching the microphone as he introduced the panel of speakers, which included a city council member, a small business owner, and a community activist. One by one, residents stood up to speak about issues ranging from housing insecurity to access to education. The discussions were raw, emotional, and at times contentious, but they were also filled with hope and determination. By the end of the night, the room had coalesced around a single goal: creating a task force to address the community's most pressing needs. Alex was nominated to lead the effort, alongside Jamal and a few other local leaders. As Pathfinders evolved into a multifaceted movement, Alex found himself reflecting on the journey that had brought him here. One evening, as he walked home from the community center, he spotted a familiar figure sitting on a bench near his apartment building. It was the man he had given his lunch to all those months ago. Alex approached cautiously, unsure if the man would recognize him. "Hi," he said. "Do you remember me?" The man looked up, his eyes widening in recognition. "You're the boy with the sandwich," he said, his voice filled with warmth. "I've thought about you a lot." Alex sat down beside him, and for the next hour they talked. The man, whose name was Robert, shared his story of falling on hard times and how that small act of kindness had given him the strength to keep going. He was now working part-time at a shelter and hoping to get back on his feet. "You gave me hope," Robert said, "and it looks like you've done a lot more than that since." Alex smiled, feeling a sense of closure he hadn't realized he needed. "You gave me hope too," he said, "and I'm glad we both found a way forward." As he walked home that night, Alex felt a renewed sense of purpose. Pathfinders had started as a simple idea, but it had grown into something far greater, a testament to the power of kindness and the ripple effects it could create. And as he looked toward the future, Alex knew that this was only the beginning. If this video kept you hooked, you won't want to miss the next one on screen. Make sure you subscribe so you're always in the loop with our freshest uploads.